Good. Okay, so today we're going to do K2 Aristocrats. These are similar to the K1 Aristocrats that we did last week, but there's one difference, and it does get quite confusing, so try to stick with me. And if this completely goes over your head, whenever you're doing it, you can always work it like a regular random alphabet aristocrat. No matter how confusing this seems, it's still easier than the random alphabet ones that we've done before. So, okay, the difference between K1 and K2 aristocrats is where the keyword is. So with the K1, like we did last time, the keyword is in the plain text, and that's translating to a ciphertext alphabet that is just the plain alphabet. With K2, the keyword is in the ciphertext alphabet, which is being translated from a plain text that is just the regular alphabet. So, okay, I know what you're thinking, that's completely meaningless. So when you're doing the test, and you get the question, you obviously have like the message that's encoded, it doesn't make any sense. And then they give you the little chart that has a row of, just the regular alphabet in order, and it will say K1 or K2. Or if it's random, it won't say anything at all. And you'll have their frequencies and you'll have the replacement. So if I'm working a K1 alphabet aristocrat, like we did last Saturday, then if I see the letter A in the encoded message and I think it translates to an E, then I would, go to A and I'd write E. If I think that the encoded D is Z, then I'd go to D and I'd write Z, right? But with a K2, if I have the encoded letter A and I think it translates to E, I would go to E on the alphabet they give you, and then underneath that you'd write A. So understanding the difference between that is pretty important. And also understanding that it's one way, you're not saying A and E are the same, they can be flip-flopped. A is translating to E, E is going to translate to something else. So the K1, your replacement letter is going to be, I think this one makes more sense. I'm looking at this letter, I think this translates to E, I'm going to replace it with E. But it's flipped with K2. With K2, whatever you think the plain text is, because that's what you're trying to find, whatever you think the plain text is, that is what you're using as the regular alphabet, which makes sense, right? Because K2, plain text, is the real alphabet. So if I think, hey, this ciphertext A is actually the plain text E, then with a K2 alphabet, you need to respect the fact that the plain text is the regular alphabet. So I'm going to find E in the regular alphabet and write A underneath. Okay, if you followed that, then I want you guys to start with the paper that's labeled handout 1. It's question number 9, 300 points. Quote has been encoded using the Aristocrat cipher for you to decode. You are told that nothing is known. So we don't get any hints or clues or anything. And this one starts with QAH, PAJ, OQ, HPQ. So I've replicated the little chart that I was talking about here. So if I think that QAH translates to, remember, the string of letters here, this is your ciphertext. So if I think this is going to translate to the plain text, V, right? That was my first guess. Note how that's repeated a few times. And also after that colon, you have the QAH, And a lot of repeated 3-letter words are and or the, but since it's starting off the beginning of the sentence and then starting off another clause, probably the. So this was my guess. What I'm going to do is go to T, and underneath T, write Q. I'm not finding Q up here, I'm finding T up here. And then I'll find the H, and I'll write A. And then I'll find the E, and I'll write H. That's because, when we're dealing with a K2 cipher, the regular alphabet is the plain text, which means that in here, in your ciphertext, I'm gonna find that keyword. Now this example for this one is pretty easy as a regular aristocrat. I think you guys should be able to figure it out, even if you don't completely grasp the concept of the K2. And unfortunately, it's not the perfect example to teach with because there's a lot of letters that aren't used, so it's not actually ever clear what the keyword is, but you should be able to figure it out. Okay, once you finish that, move on to the next assignment, the one labeled 2, and it should be 280 points. Decode this Aristocrat Cipher. Quote of Roy T. Bennett, keyword Bennett. First thing, remember from last time, we're using alphabets, so you're never going to have repeated letters. So the code word Bennett is actually just going to look like this. Bent, because you cannot repeat the second N, the second E, or the second T. You're going to go through the same strategy. This one is a lot more difficult. I struggled quite a bit to get this one, but just to re-explain the concept, starts off with this line. If I think, let's just say, this is kind of a hint. So if I'm going to guess that SP is if, translating to the plain text if, again, I'm not finding S and P in my alphabet because this is the plain text. I'm finding plain text F and I'm writing ciphertext P. Finding I, writing S. And this wasn't the best example because things get a little messy in the middle with missing letters, but this is great because I know if I just continued this, F, G, H, I can go ahead and say G is Q and H is R, right? Because P, Q, R, S, it's gonna match. That means my keyword then is somewhere else in here. I think that's everything. As always, let me know if you guys have questions. I know only a few of you were there when we went over K1 alphabets, so if you have some questions related to that, please ask the people who were there. And I think that's it. So enjoy your Saturdays. I hope this made sense. Good luck.